Hello and welcome. What's up, everybody? Thank you for clicking on the video. Today, I'm going to be telling you my personal top 5 baits / bait categories for springtime bass fishing. Let's do it. All right, my personal top 5 favorite, most productive baits for catching largemouth bass in the springtime. It's springtime, the weather's warming up, the birds are chirping, the bees are buzzing, the bass are pushing up shallow, and they're chasing, and it's one of the best times of the year to get out there and catch fish. It's one of the best times of the year to get out there and catch a bunch of fish, and it's one of the best times of the year to get out there and catch a big fish. And I'm gonna talk about my favorite ways and most productive ways to do that right now here in this video. Really quick, I want to give a special shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Deep Dive, the Deep Dive fishing app. Deep Dive is an application that I've been using for several months now to help me eliminate dead water, find the good water, and put more fish in the boat. It has absolutely increased my success out there on the water, and it has some really unique features and tools that I enjoy using to help me put more fish in the boat. It is an in-depth, data-driven app, the best fishing app that I've personally ever tried. And I just want to tell you really quickly about a couple of the key features that I've been using lately to help me have good days out there on the water and put as many fish into the boat as possible on my 19,000 plus acre lake. So jumping into the main page of the Deep Dive app, you can see several sections, several features, and one of my favorite features that I use the most is the wind effects feature, where I can find wind-blown banks to focus on, areas where the wind has been ripping the most, not just along the shoreline, but across the entire surface of the lake. It gives you data on the effects that the wind is having on the water. The wind's your friend, and I use the wind effects section to help me put more fish in the boat. You guys saw that in the last video. Also, the water clarity section. This is one of my favorite sections because not only does it show you where the clear water is and where the dirty water is, but it helps you find the sweet spot, which is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that stained water, water that's not too murky and too muddy, but also not too clear. That middle ground is where I find my baits that I like to utilize in the springtime to be the most productive. So the water clarity section helps me stay out of that super muddy, dirty water, and also keeps me away from the super clear, gin clear, oceanic type water, and helps me find the stained stuff that I like to fish the most. In addition, they have stream flow, water inflow, bait tools, best areas of the lake. I've been having a lot of success mid-lake, as you can see right here on my home lake, the middle section of the lake, where some of that less clear, but also not too dirty water exists. I've been smashing them. And in the previous video, you saw me fish this little section right here with a shallow crankbait. That's where we caught all of our fish. I used the wind effects feature and the best areas feature to narrow down the water to that little stretch right there, and I caught a lot of fish doing it. Gives you access to a ton of data for practically any body of water that you can find on a map. Deep Dive is gonna have data for it. I encourage you guys to check out this app. Use the link down below in the description. Download Deep Dive. Tell them I sent you. Thank you, Deep Dive, for supporting the channel. But let's get off into the meat and potatoes of today's video. The main course, my top 5 baits / bait categories for springtime bass fishing. And I'm gonna start it off with old reliable. This one right here is a classic here on the channel. One of my all-time favorites. It's a bait that I love to utilize when those fish push up shallow to get that reaction bite going. Oh, and heads up. Fair warning, all the baits that you're gonna see in today's video are reaction type baits. The bass are chasing, they're on the move, they're aggressive, they're active, and now is the time to turn and burn and cover water. I'm not jack-a-lacking around, I'm not dragging and bagging, I'm freaking turning and burning. And I'm trying to get a reaction bite, so you're gonna see a lot of the fun stuff in this video. But my number one bait, without a doubt, to just go out there and blast some bass is gonna be a soft plastic jerkbait rigged Weightless. This right here is the 6th Sense Fishing Flush 5.2. I love this bait. I love throwing the Flush Weightless in the springtime. I have it rigged up here with a 4/0 Gamakatsu EWG light wire hook on 15-pound fluorocarbon. I've got it paired up with my 6'9" medium moderate heater series rod, shorter in length, light but mighty. Hoisted some dragons with the 6'9" medium. And mounted up on the 6'9" heater, I have a 7.2-to-1 SLX MGL 70. 15-pound fluoro, weightless fluke, weightless flush. That's gonna be the first bait in today's spring bait breakdown video. This right here is an all-out fish catcher. Went out with my boy Justin Tritt just the other day, and we utilized this specific technique to fish and put fish in the boat. And I had a good time fishing with a long-time member of the Heater Army, the Heater family, my friend Justin Tritt. Shout outs to him for making his way down here to Hill Country after we hung out at the Bassmaster Classic to go out there, throw the flush, and catch some fish. That was a good time. So that's bait number one, a weightless fluke or a weightless flush. You're gonna see this bait come up here again in this video. We're gonna talk about it a little bit more, but that's the first one right there. Simple and easy, a weightless fluke, a weightless flush, a weightless soft plastic jerk bait. That's the move. It's power hour right now. We're turning and burning, we're flicking and twitching, and we're trying to put as many fish in the boat as possible because it's springtime and the bass are eating. So there it is. That's bait number one. That's setup number one. Let's keep it rolling. Bait number two, or should I say bait category number two, is going to be a shallow to medium diving, smaller finesse profile crankbait. Now, what do I mean by finesse profile? I'm talking about like a 50 size square bill or under, or a smaller profile medium diver. I got a few examples here to show you. Let's break it down. All right, the first bait that I want to talk about in this category is another legend here on the channel. I'm talking about Chester Cheeto, the Crush 50X square bill from 6th Sense Fishing. That's my favorite square bill crankbait of all time. Caught so many fish on this bait, and right now is an excellent time to throw a red or orange colored bait. And this right here is a bait that I have supreme confidence in. We nicknamed it Chester Cheeto because I've caught so many fish on this little Cheeto colored bait. It's bright orange and gold with black and red accents. But once it gets underneath the surface of the water, it turns into this beautiful sort of amber, brownish, sort of like a fall time dead oak leaf color. It goes from being bright and vibrant to really natural once you get into that stained / semi-stained water, and it is a fish getter in the springtime. That's the Crush 50X. This is a square bill, 50 size profile. It's 60 millimeters overall. It's 3/8 of an ounce, and it's gonna dive 2 to 5 feet depending on the line that you throw it on. I like to throw it on 15-pound fluorocarbon so that I can get it up shallow into cover, get it bumping and grinding through the rocks, through the trees, and have a little bit more abrasion resistance with my line. That's gonna keep it in that mid portion of that diving range, diving somewhere between 2.5 to 4 feet, depending on how fast I'm cranking it. I've got it paired up again, just like the flush, with my 6'9" medium moderate heater series rod, one of the most versatile rods in the lineup. The heater series, of course, my signature line of fishing rods that I created with 6th Sense. And this is the bait right here that I had in mind when I created the 6'9" medium moderate. I have it paired up with an SLX XT reel, 6.3 to 1 on the gear ratio. Again, 15-pound fluorocarbon. And that is square bill bait number one. But I want to give you another example really quick here. Notice I said shallow to medium diving crankbait. So that brings me to bait number two in this category. We're gonna talk about the Curve 55. This is a medium diving, smaller profile crankbait, dives 5 to 9 feet, but as you can see, it has a smaller profile. Sort of like the wiggle wart style bait. Maybe a mix between a wiggle wart and a Spro rock crawler. This is the Curve 55 from 6th Sense. I've been out catching them on this bait this spring. You guys are gonna see some more of that coming in a future video. But when the fish are out just a little bit deeper and that square bill isn't getting it done, this is an excellent option to throw in the springtime. Now this one I have paired up with my 7.2 medium heavy Modfast heater series rod. The 7.2 medium heavy Modfast is absolutely dialed for the medium divers. It weighs 3/8 of an ounce. This rod loads up perfectly. sails it out there, has plenty of backbone, but it's moderate fast action, a little bit more parabolic. It's going to let you load up and keep those fish pinned when you're fishing with the trebles. I have it paired up to an SLX DC reel, 6.3 to 1, again, 15-pound fluorocarbon. And that is going to be bait number 2 in this category of shallow to medium diving finesse profile crankbaits for the springtime. But I have one more I want to show you. We're hopping back over to the 6.9 medium moderate heater, and we're going even more finesse with this one. This is a Shad Scales Curve Finesse. This bait has the same body of the Curve 55 I just showed you, except it's a square bill. As you can see, this one is small but mighty, super shallow, dives 1 to 3 feet. So you're gonna throw this one up right off the bank. I mean, you're trying to catch these fish that have a tent set up with a campfire and a lawn chair sitting up there. They're gonna come off a dry land to eat this one. I mean, this bait is meant to fish shallow. Bump this around shallow and you're gonna be able to get it done. I've got it paired up with an SLX MGL 70, 6.3 to 1. Again, 15-pound fluorocarbon so that I can bang these baits through a little bit heavy cover and not have to worry about rashing up my line. I have zebra mussels in my lake, and that 15-pound line gives me just a little bit more abrasion resistance. If you want your baits to go a little bit deeper, throw that 12-pound fluoro and you'll be good to go. But that's bait number 3 and the last in this category, a tiny, small profile finesse square bill to crank them up shallow. And that concludes the shallow cranking portion of this video. But let's keep it rolling on to one of my other favorite baits ever. All these baits are some of my favorites. Let's be honest. I absolutely love throwing everything that I'm about to show you in this video. Turning and burning, chunking and winding, covering water, power fishing. It's my favorite way to go. And all these baits are gonna be super fun. Next up in the lineup, I got 2 for you here in this one. So let's go ahead and talk swim jigs. The Swimjig. This right here, my highest confidence bait of all time. If you told me, Justin, you're going to a new body of water, you don't know anything about it, you got to catch a fish on this body of water, and you only can have one bait to do it with, what bait are you going to pick? I'm going to pick up a 6th Sense Divine Swimjig, 3/8 ounce in Pro Green Shad, and that's a Kitech Fat Swing Impact 3.8 inch trailer on the back of it in Rainbow Shad. Taste the rainbow. A Swimjig, one of my absolute favorite baits to throw in the springtime. The bass are pushing up shallow, throwing this along the bank, letting it sink for a second or two, and then just slow rolling it back to the boat. And let me tell you, they have been absolutely smashing the Swimjig this spring. I have some incredible boat flip filled content. Me and my boy Blaze out there busting their ass on the Swimjig. Can't wait to share some of these videos that I have coming up. That right there is the bait that got me started with 6th Sense, got me falling down the 6th Sense rabbit hole. I was learning a lot about swimjig fishing, falling in love with swimjig fishing, was throwing some cheaper swimjigs that I was just going through from another brand. I bebopped down the Tackle Islet Academy and I found what looked to me to be a higher quality, better built, better looking swimjig, the Divine Swimjig from 6th Sense. In my opinion, the best swimjig on the market. And I picked one up and the rest is history. Started smashing with that sucker on my channel. Shortly after that, I met Casey and the entire 6th Sense family, and the rest is history. But the Divine Swimjig with a Kitech 3.8 on the back of it, I have that paired up with my 7.4 medium heavy Mod Fast Heater Series rod. This is my Heater Series Swimjig rod. I designed this rod to throw a swimjig specifically. It does a couple other techniques really well, but I'm gonna stay on track here and just talk about the swimjig right now. I designed this rod to throw this bait on. The Divine Swimjig is what I had in mind when we were creating the Heater Series. I said, I want to make a rod that is specifically fine-tuned to throw that Divine Swimjig, and I believe I did it. I absolutely love this match, this pairing right here, match made in heaven. I have it mounted up with my most expensive, highest end reel, a Shimano Metanium, 7.1 to 1 on the gear ratio, 15 or 17 pound fluorocarbon. And that right there is just one of my all-time favorite baits to throw. One of the most fun bites that you could ever get on is a Swimjig bite. Just chunk it and wind it and they eat it, dude. It's so much fun. And I have caught a ton of fish already this spring on this exact setup right here. If you're not throwing a Swimjig in the springtime, I highly recommend you try it. There's something about throwing a Swimjig. You know, when you're throwing like the Finesse cranks, you have the moderate parabolic rods and you kind of sweep into them, load up, and or just reel into the hook set. And it's so much fun. You guys hear me talk all the time about how I love throwing square bills and shallow cranks. It's one of my favorite ways to fish. But there's just something about throwing a Swimjig, because when you get a bite on the Swimjig, man, you get to load up and crack one. You get to crack a hard hook set, drive that hook home. It's old school power fishing at its finest. And I just love throwing the freaking Swimjig, man. The Divine Swimjig with a Kitech 3.8 on the back. If I could just have one bait and I'm going to a new lake and I got to catch a fish to feed myself or feed my family, that's the one that I'm going with right there. But wait, there's more. I have one other bait in this category that I want to talk to you about before we move on. And that's going to be another bait that I've been having some success with lately, with a little bit different style trailer on it. This is the new Conda Finesse Swimjig from 6th Sense. So this one has a finesse cut. You can see the skirt has that funny haircut on the bottom side. Different head design, totally new mold, lighter weed guard, stout hook, but it's a little bit smaller. And then as you can see, I'm running the Bongo 3.8 on the back of that thing, which is like a cross style bait, but it kicks and flicks like no other. On the sink, this thing is kicking, and then on the reel, this thing is swimming, but it gives it the best of both worlds. In that shad lavender color, you're getting a paddle tail kicking profile, but you're also getting the crawfish claw profile. When I'm not throwing that Divine and I need to go a little bit more finesse, this is the one that I'm going to. Again, 7.4 medium heavy mod fast heater series Swimjig rod. This is my Swimjig setup. The reel over here on this one is the new Shimano Corrado M 7.4 to 1. I like a 7 to 1 for my Swimjigs. 15 to 17 pound fluorocarbon depending on the cover. That's Swimjig setup number 2, and the Swimjig is bait number 3 in today's spring bait breakdown video. All right, let's keep it moving. We're already to bait number 4. Bait category number 4 is gonna be some type of a bladed bait, but I'm gonna start it out with the king of the castle. Of course, I'm talking about a bladed jig. For me, it's gotta be a jackhammer. And in the springtime, it's an excellent time to throw that fire craw. This is a 3/8 ounce jackhammer in fire craw. The beautiful boiled crawfish bongo on the back of it. I love throwing the bongo on the back of my bladed jigs. When I'm throwing the fire craw, it's typically got a bongo on the back of it because I'm trying to imitate a bright red crawfish. Now, you heard me talk about how I designed a rod in the heater series to throw the Swimjig. Well, I did the same thing to throw a bladed jig. Really similar, but a little bit shorter. The 7.2 medium heavy mod fast is my chatterbait heater. So what I had in mind when I designed this rod, going down the bank, chunking and winding a chatterbait, fishing fast, covering water. I have an SLX MGL 70 17 pound fluorocarbon, like a little bit heavier line when I'm throwing the jackhammer. That's the setup, 6.3 to 1 on the gear ratio. And I love throwing this little combo right here in the springtime. Everybody loves throwing a jackhammer. Of course, the jackhammer has become a staple in bass fishing, and that fire craw color a few years back absolutely took the bass fishing world by storm. So it's something that I throw a lot, especially in that stained to dirtier water, bright red. But another really killer combo that I feel like some people may skip over when they're going straight to that fire craw is this color right here. This one is the Heights Hot Craw. Now when I'm throwing this one, as you can see, it's still got those red tones to it, but it's a little bit more subtle. It's a dark red mixed with green pumpkin. So when I'm throwing this jackhammer, I pair it up with the green pumpkin juice bongo. So I've got a green pumpkin trailer on a green pumpkin and red jackhammer. Match these up, it's a killer springtime option, something that's not quite as bright and vibrant. So if your water's a little bit more clear, a little bit less stained, and not so dirty, this right here is an excellent combo, one that I love. But before we move on, I have to talk about one more in the bladed jig category. I could not talk bladed jigs and bladed jig trailers without talking about the Flush 5.2 paired up with a jackhammer. Now, I know you guys, you saw the local, the people's champ, the Texas hometown hero from Longview, Texas, Lee Livesey, smashing them on Lake Ray Roberts with the bubblegum pink Flush on the back of a pink jackhammer. It was awesome to see. Secured third place in the legendary Bassmaster Classic. I was pulling for Lee to win the whole thing, but he showed out with that bubblegum Flush on the back of a jackhammer. I've been using the Flush 5.2 as a bladed jig trailer here on this channel for years, and it felt awesome to see Lee catching those fish at such a high level of bass angling during that tournament using the same combo that I have thrown myself for years. If you guys remember the Choke Canyon videos where I was at Choke Canyon, Texas with Casey himself, I was out there smashing dragons, and I was talking about how much I love throwing the Flush 5.2 on the back of a jackhammer. It's my favorite jackhammer trailer. You can watch videos of me and my boy T-Cock on Choke, up in the river channels, backwoods bassing, and I'm going on and on about how much I love pairing up the Flush with the jackhammer. I loved seeing my boy Lee smash him like that. I instantly messaged him and I said, dude, I've been throwing that bait combo for years, and the Flush 5.2, in my opinion, is the best jackhammer trailer on the market. I love this thing on the back of a bladed jig, any bladed jig. The jackhammer just happens to be my and a lot of other people's preference, but the profile and the dance, the action that you create when you put a Flush 5.2 on the back of a chatterbait is unreal. That right there is a super heater, and one that I have so much confidence in. I could not go through this category without rigging one out and talking about that pairing right there. Because like I said, I'm throwing the bongo on the back of that fire craw, but if I'm throwing any shad color, whether it be white or something more natural with the gray tones, the thread fin tones, I'm pairing that up with a Flush 5.2. It's a match made in heaven. And the way that tail works, the erratic action that you get out of that right there is an absolute springtime dragon snatcher. I love throwing that bait right there. Could not do this category right here without talking about the Flush on the back of a jackhammer. But in the spirit of talking about bladed baits, I want to take time. Like I said, this is my top 5 bait/bait categories for springtime bass fishing. And this is the bladed bait category. So of course you cannot talk springtime bladed baits without talking about the good old spinnerbait. This right here is the Divine spinnerbait with a juggle minnow on the back of it. And then this one right here is a little handmade spinnerbait with some gold willow leaf blades that my buddy Dave the Mangler made for me. These right here, 2 of my confidence spinnerbaits. In addition to the spinnerbait, the old Alabama rig also catches them pretty well in the springtime too. Those bass are chasing balls of bait, and that's an excellent bait ball imitator with some blades on it. So I had to go ahead and include the old chandelier in this category as well. If you guys have any questions on what equipment I'm using to throw the spinnerbait or the A-rigs, drop them down below in the comments and I will get back to you with a reply. But let's keep this video rocking and rolling. I have one more bait category that I want to talk to you about. Let's see, we've talked shallow to mid-depth finesse crankbaits. We've talked swim jigs. We've talked weightless soft plastic jerkbaits. We've talked jackhammers, chatterbaits / bladed baits. And now we're going to move on to the last category. But wait, there's more. I actually have one bonus category, a 6th category that I'm going to talk about after we talk about the next one, which is one of the most fun and popular ways to fish ever. This category has its own subculture of fishermen. This category has an entire legion of anglers that just fish this way exclusively. And I'm talking, of course, about swim baits, big swim baits specifically, like this Trace 7.25 multi-joint. Now, I said this is a bait/bait category video, and that's what I meant. I'm talking about the swim bait category. Practically any of them. It's a great time to throw these type of baits in spring. Everything from the shad imitating multi-joints to big slow winding glides like the draw, chopper style baits like the Chad Shad. That one's called School Bus. The Bull Shad Burrito, the Whale 6.0, this right here, single swimmers, bluegill imitators like the Gantarel. Bass hate the bluegill coming near their beds. They're super aggressive toward bluegill in the springtime. The Trace 6-inch is probably my favorite. That's that matte natural. I'm even talking smaller profile swim baits like this right here that I got from Mike Buca at the Bassmaster Classic. This is his smaller trick shad with a beautiful custom paint right there, that lavender shad look. Also, shout outs to Kevin and KGB Swim Baits for this matte Moonpaw multi-joint. This is his new bait. He gifted this to me at the Bassmaster Classic. Any and all of these baits are applicable right now in the springtime, and that is one of my favorite baits to throw when these bass start getting aggressive in these warmer waters. But lastly, out of all of the swim baits, I want to mention one like this right here. This is a Casey's Custom Trace multi-joint painted to look like a largemouth bass. Now this is the time of year where you will start to see those smaller juvenile largemouth pushing up into the shallows, grouping up into little squads and rolling around. Bass are so aggressive, they're psychotic cannibal killers, and they will eat their own. And this right here is a pattern that I feel like might get overlooked by some, but is super deadly in the springtime. I will have this tied on, throwing it around up shallow, trying to draw out a bite from a bigger bass that's gone crazy and is trying to eat one of the smaller bass. I just wanted to take this opportunity to show you guys the beautiful paintwork on that Casey's Custom. That right there is one that would suck to lose, but it's one that I'm gonna fish with because I know the mentality that these bass have, and they are inclined to munch their own in the springtime. I've seen it happen before here on the channel. Some of the most incredible footage that I've ever captured was me hooking into a smaller bass, and then an absolute behemoth came up and tried to eat it off of my line. Some of you may remember that video from years ago here on the channel. So there we go. That's my top 5 bait/bait categories for springtime bass busting. But wait, there's more. I have one more category that I want to talk to you about. This one right here is a little bit of a specific, sort of a niche category. I'm going to talk about sight fishing for a second. Something that has become a tradition here on this channel. Pete and Heat Tower of Power. Me and my boy Teacock out there sight fishing, catching big bass off of beds. Now I know some people aren't into bed fishing. Some people are full blown against bed fishing, but I'm not, and it's something that I enjoy doing. I have a lot of fun. Caught my PB last year, 10 pounds, 12 ounces atop the Tower of Power, the best bed fishing video of 2024. If you haven't seen that video, it's here for you on the channel. You should do a search. Go find that and watch it because it was absolute action-packed, full of nothing but giants. And this right here is my #1 bed fishing bait, and I had to include it in this video. This is the 6 Sense Fishing Sweep paddle tail, the 6-inch version in bone pearl. I have it paired up with a 7/0 keel weighted swim bait hook, 2 glass beads, and a 1/2 ounce tungsten bullet weight pegged. And that right there, in my humble opinion, but what do I know, is the best bed fishing bait that there is. Now, I may not know much about bed fishing, but the guy that taught me, my friend, Captain Teacock, Travis Cockrum, he's the best sight fisherman that I've ever been around. The dude knows so much about sight fishing. It's unreal, and this is the bait that he throws all the time. I've watched that man catch so many giants, saw him put his customers on their PB. So many double-digit dragons have got into the boat on this bait right here. I'm a believer. I love throwing the sweep into a bed, weighted heavy up front. Something about it that those bass just can't stand. I've got it rigged up on the 7/8 extra heavy fast Swimbait special heater series rod. This thing is a meat stick. Not only is it great for throwing all the swim baits that we just talked about, but it's an excellent heavy punching, flipping, pitching, and bed fishing bait as well. Heavy line on that one, 20 to 25 pound fluorocarbon. I'm not trying to lose a dragon. But when we're flipping into beds, we've also been utilizing the new flip gill from 6th Sense, which is a bluegill profile flipping style bait. They have an excellent color for bed fishing. It's called 4K Sunfish, and it has that bright chartreuse on the bait. So those are two really killer bed fishing options and a bonus category that I wanted to include in this video. You guys can check out my rods or any of the 6th Sense baits that I told you about on 6thsensefishing.com and use my code JR10 at checkout to secure the heater, save the bread, and knock 10% off your entire order. If you place an order and you use my JR10 code, please take a screenshot of your order confirmation and DM it to me on Instagram or Facebook so that I can post it up, tag your account. It's just a way for me to say thank you and give you all some public recognition for helping us keep this whole thing running. Because best believe, without you guys watching, liking the videos, and subscribing to the channel, using the JR10 code, all this falls apart and the wheels fall off. We're gonna ride till the wheels fall off, and without you guys, the wheels fall off. So shout outs to the almighty JR10 Army. Special thank you to the Heater Army. Those are the names that you see scrolling across the screen right here. You can join the Heater Army by clicking the top link down below in the video description. I also have merch back in stock on the Heater Zone if you would like to support the channel. Shout outs to the Heater Army. Shout outs to all of you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video. But that's about all I got for you today. That about does it. That about wraps her on up. So I'm gonna say goodbye for now, and I will see you on the next one.